Today we're driving the 2022 Hyundai Elantra N. This is a car that I've been super excited to get behind the wheel of. I've always been a fan of the Veloster N, and I feel like this might just hit the sweet spot. It fixes a lot of issues that I had with the Veloster N. For one, there's a very usable and sizable back seat. Look at all that room back there. You could fit a kid back there, no problem. Passengers over 6 foot, easy. We have 276 horsepower out of a 2-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder. Today we're driving a car with an 8-speed dual clutch. This is the wet clutch DCT. We have a manual mechanical handbrake, flappy paddles, N drive modes, NGrinShift. Lots of exciting performance features in this Elantra N, and I think a slightly nicer interior than the Veloster has as well. That was one of my major complaints about the Veloster N, is it just felt a little bit bargain basement, a little bit simple for being such a special car to drive. So let's walk you around this new Elantra N, show you what it looks like inside and out. We'll take it for a drive, give you guys some first impressions on what this thing is like, and just real quick, let's listen to that exhaust. Right off the bat, you can see we've got some pretty interesting styling going on in the front of this Elantra N. Probably going to be controversial to a lot of buyers, but I think it looks kind of cool. It's something different. It's very aggressive. There's lots of intake scoops for brake cooling and air cooling. And again, this is a very track-capable sports sedan. Big 14.2-inch rotors. This car that we have today is on Continental DWS 06 Plus tires, which actually make for a pretty good all-season tire. We can drive this in the snow, have a pretty decent amount of traction, have some fun in the dry. The owner is going to put the Pilot Sport 4S's back on in the summer, but of course, as you can see, we've got a bunch of snow. You can see around the back, we've got a spoiler, a pretty aggressive rear diffuser, and these exhaust tips are just massive. Nice little burble from the exhaust too. You pop the trunk here with a little button under the Hyundai logo. That'll come up automatically. Pretty wide opening, nice and spacious trunk, and you can see you've got your red painted chassis bracing in the back there. That I think is really awesome. Do we have a spare tire? We do not, but we have an inflation kit and a space where we could probably fit a spare tire if we wanted to. Yeah, nice usable trunk space. You can unbolt that rear bracing if you want a little bit more room in the pass-through for like a mountain bike or something like that, but I think in something like this, you're probably going to want that, especially if you're going to be tracking your Elantra N. And it just looks cool every time you open up the trunk, throw something in the back. In the back seats, we just have a ton of space. I'm 5'10". The driving seat is set to my position. Getting in and out is a little bit challenging with this C-pillar being a little bit lower, and I don't have as much head height as I would like back here, but there is so much legroom. I can really stretch out and kind of sink down into this rear seat. That's really not much of an issue. Really love these bucket seats up front. They're super comfortable, very supportive, and this is a pretty nice looking interior. Hyundai did a good job upgrading this Elantra from the Veloster, and I think it's just a little bit more of a special and modern place to be. All right, let's take a look under the hood at that 2-liter turbo. This makes 276 horsepower, and the dual clutch Elantra N makes 286 for 20 seconds in the NGrinShift mode. Has a little overboost button on the steering wheel. That's pretty cool. Pretty standard N turbocharged 4-cylinder in here. This gets decent fuel economy too. Basically, all you need to know is this is a very practical sedan. Nicely packaged, pretty spacious for what it is, the size that it is, the weight that it is. The dual clutch Elantra N is around 3,300 pounds. The manual is just under 3,200 pounds. So you save a little bit over 100 pounds getting the 6-speed manual transmission. Both are going to be fantastic options. All right, so before we go for a drive, let's walk you around this interior just a little bit more. We have auto up-down windows on the driver's side window, and that is a really quick window that goes up and down. That's great. 2 N drive mode buttons. So the one on the left will just change your drive mode, much like this drive mode button does down here near the shifter, and that's great to have that quick access within reach. A little bit redundant because you already have this drive mode button down here, but that's okay. The button on the right with the colored in N logo will put you into N mode, which gives you the most aggressive suspension setting, engine tuning, and steering feel. Weights up the steering quite a bit. You press that again and you can get into N Custom 1, which you can set to whatever you want. The owner has this set to exactly what I would set it to. Engine in the most aggressive setting, steering and comfort, and suspension and comfort. That's kind of the way to do it, at least in the wintertime. We have really nice ergonomics down here with the climate control, all physical buttons. Hyundai has been using some haptic buttons recently, and I'm not a big fan of it. I'm glad that they've kept physical controls in this Elantra N. We have heated seats, auto climate control with a high, medium, and low auto fan speed setting, which is great. A quick button to access the reverse camera here, which is pretty cool as well. And quick access controls here for your navigation, your radio, your media, Apple CarPlay. You have this custom little star button here that you can set to kind of show whatever you want. So the owner has it set to quickly access this track app screen, which I think is super cool. It shows you what settings you have everything set to. You can activate launch control. You can see a G meter, see your oil and engine temps, speed, tachometer. All of it is just right here. This kind of reminds me of what the GTR has in its infotainment display. Pretty cool stuff. And you can definitely tell that the Hyundai engineers have built this car for enthusiasts and really catered it to what people want out of their track car, daily driver. I mean, this really hits all the marks. It's just such a cool package that you can really tell Hyundai has put a lot of thought into. The N Division right now, I think, is killing it. I just drove a Civic Si recently. Very curious to see how I like this compared to that. Again, we've also got the new Civic Type R coming out, the 11th gen. This Elantra N might be a pretty good competitor to the Civic Type R in terms of performance, but also with price. This is about $33,400, not including destination for the dual clutch, a little bit less for the manual car. Our USB port for Apple CarPlay is right down here, right above our nice grippy space for wireless phone charging. This touchscreen seems to work really well, very typical Hyundai. Quick controls. It's a little bit far away from my hand, but you do have to kind of just stretch a little bit to use it. Otherwise, I mean, this is pretty much your basic Elantra interior, just with some really nice seats. This N logo lights up at night. That's kind of mated to the dome light function in the car. We've got a sunroof, which is only available in the dual clutch Elantra N. That's a little bit nicer. We've got a Bose sound system. That also sounds pretty good. We'll do a little bit of a sound system test at the end of this. Quick controls for our gauge cluster illumination, lane keep assist button right there, traction control off. You've got an ESC sport mode, and if you hold the button, you can turn everything off completely and get full traction and stability control disabled there, which is kind of a rare thing in cars these days. All right, let's take this Elantra N for a drive. We're going to start off in just normal mode and see how it handles this snowy parking lot with traction control on these Continental DWS 06 tires. Seems to do pretty well, actually, from a start. Try ABS here. Nice. Oh, wow, it's even telling me that the GPS knows that I'm going the wrong way around this parking lot. Interesting. Steering has a really nice weight to it, even in normal mode. Let's throw us into N Custom. And yes, you can handbrake turn around in the Elantra N, which is pretty fun in the wintertime. I'm impressed by the grip of these Continental tires. They do pretty well in the snow. This exhaust does sound really good at low speeds. The pops, the burbles, just that off-throttle sound that it makes. You can play with this, and it's really pretty cool. At low parking lot speeds, this dual clutch seems to be tuned really well. It's super smooth, no jerkiness. Shifts are imperceptible except for the little exhaust note behind them. Hyundai's done a fabulous job tuning this dual clutch. I think it's actually better than what Volkswagen is doing these days. And this wet clutch DCT should be a lot more reliable than the older 7-speed dual clutch from Hyundai. I do think this is one of just the best sounding 4-cylinders on the market. I could listen to this all day. Super smooth shifts from this transmission. I love it. Ride quality's great in comfort suspension mode. Of course, that stiffens up significantly in sport and track mode. That's to be expected. I like that the exhaust pops are a little bit unpredictable. You don't quite know what's going to happen. And as a result, they don't seem as artificial, which I kind of like. It's quick. I can't get over how good this dual clutch is. And that electronic limited slip diff really puts its power down well under hard throttle. This thing's fun. The exhaust sounds pretty good cruising too. You can hear there's just a little bit of a subtle tone out of the back, but there's no drone. It's really well tuned. Let's throw us into normal N mode. Get the stiffer suspension. See how it handles this corner here. Steering really stiffens up. Seems to be pretty neutral even at lower speeds. In N mode, you get much more aggressive shifts. It almost kind of drags that clutch a little bit, so there's almost uninterrupted power between gears. Put us into N custom so we get better ride quality. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Let's go back into our performance display. We activate a launch control here. What does that look like? Traction off. Fighting for traction there through first and second. Of course, we're on salty, dusty roads today. That was cool. The exhaust is entertaining enough to be enjoyable, but not loud enough to be obnoxious and too ostentatious, I think. It's probably a lot louder on the outside than it is on the inside. But still, I'm really liking the tuning here. Steering weight and comfort is probably my favorite. not a ton of steering feel, but there's enough to know what's going on with the chassis. And again, not my car. I'm not going to be pushing this as much as I normally would with a press vehicle. I think comparing this to the Veloster N, it's a little bit more comfortable and a little bit more refined, and the interior space is a way nicer place to be. This is going to be a weapon on track. It's such a great front-wheel drive platform, and the drivetrain here is phenomenal. I can't get over how good this dual clutch is. Plenty of power, a really nice linear torque curve too. Never really comes on super hard, but it's fast enough to be entertaining while not being too quick for the street. And torque steer is incredibly well managed with this electronic front diff. Tons of traction out of corners. A little bit of wheel spin on these Continental DWS 06s, which I think is just kind of entertaining. That's cool. Cruising on the highway, this is a very comfortable car. We've got a few different drive modes. Sport, which honestly I don't know why you would use Sport too much, because you're probably just either going to be in normal or N custom. And we have an eco mode, changes our gauge clusters yet again. There is quite a bit of wind and road and tire noise, but that's to be expected with any performance front-wheel drive sedan or hot hatch. I don't think it's probably on par with the Civic Si, maybe a little bit less wind noise. And I'm happy to say that once you're done ripping this Elantra N around town, it really settles down beautifully. It's super comfortable. This dual clutch is just so smooth. The engagement off the line is almost automatic-like. There's no lurch, you don't feel the clutches slipping at all. Between gears, it's almost seamless. Ride quality is surprisingly good. I thought this would be a little bit stiffer than it actually is. You definitely feel like you're in a sportier car, especially over some larger bumps. But the wheelbase of this Elantra N over the Veloster makes this a much more comfortable car to live with. And I actually really like the way this drives down the road. It's super comfortable, very daily drivable. There's a lot of chassis stiffening that Hyundai has done here, from seam welding to extra bracing, that really does make this car a much more capable and stiffer chassis. And that also just kind of improves the drivability and the feel of it on a daily basis too. I feel like I'm in a little bit tighter, nicer of an Elantra with this N. And also the interior materials, the touch points add to that. The tech here, the implementation of all the technology, the screens is just beautiful. I love all the physical controls and buttons. The interaction points in this cabin are really nice. I mean, really, if I had any complaints, it's that there's quite a bit of just hard, scratchy plastic. But for the most part, you kind of start to forget about it because the driving experience is so good. And there are some nicer materials to distract you. These seats are a real highlight. The contrast blue stitching is pretty cool. You know, just kind of very typical N. That's kind of their brand color, and you see that all throughout this interior, from this little line on the shifter. Adds just a little bit of sportiness to the car, and makes it feel a little more upscale than it is. And this really does have a split personality. In normal mode, you almost forget what you're driving. It's just, you get a little bit of boost sound under the hood at light throttle, but until you put this back into N mode or quickly press your NGrinShift button, you really do forget what this car is capable of. And the Jekyll Hyde, the dual personality, the breadth of performance that you get from this car is pretty unmatched in the segment. And the way that you can really individualize and personalize those drive mode settings is a really key feature that I think makes this a unique option in the enthusiast market. This is a great front-wheel drive chassis. It handles awesome. If I had any complaints, I think the steering's a little bit dead, but it's super direct. It weights up nicely in normal mode, and I like you can control that in the settings. Otherwise, though, I really don't have a lot of complaints about this. I love that they've retained a manual, an actual physical handbrake. I think that just shows that they are dedicated to enthusiasts and them having a little bit of fun in the winter. I think I appreciate that. And then right when you want it, 2 press of the end button, you've got your custom drive mode, and you're ready to go. Love it. Love it. I would like to have adaptive cruise, but the lane centering works super well, and there's nothing wrong with traditional cruise control. If anything, you have a little bit more control over it, and it's a very easy system to turn on, turn off, switch speeds. You can skip those 5-mile-an-hour increments really quickly, and that gives you some more control in traffic situations. And honestly, I don't really like to use adaptive cruise control in heavy traffic because it's always putting me in people's blind spots. So if you're just cruising on open road, the old school cruise control works just fine in my book. Let's see how the sound system is. That's one surefire way to drown out any road noise. Sound system is fantastic, really nice, super clear, very rich and deep basses. There's a very nice warmth to it. Not exactly sure what our levels are adjusted to here. Come on. yeah, very impressed with the audio quality of this Elantra, and this is great. Let's go back into our map so we can see where we're going. Boy, when you put this into N mode with everything on full stiff, full aggressive, you can really feel this chassis come alive. On a set of sticky summer tires or track tires, this would be an absolute weapon to deal with on track. You can feel the rear end come around. It's super neutral, really well balanced. And it's nice to have that split personality out of a car. I think that's always been my favorite thing about these N products, is just how adjustable they are with the drive modes and the individual settings. I mean, you can really just go into these cars and dial them into however you want them to act and to react to your inputs. ESC, you can completely turn it off. ELSD, you've got controls for that, sport or normal mode. Well, I think right now this is pretty class leading in terms of fun to drive, track capable sport sedans / hot hatches. I like this a lot more than the Veloster N. I think this is just a fantastic performance option. Hyundai's knocked it out of the park with this Elantra, and they've refined enough things compared to the Veloster with this to, I think, make it a much more compelling purchase for most buyers and most drivers. It's not too refined to be boring. It's just the right balance. It's kind of the Goldilocks car in the N lineup. And I hate to say it, but I would be hard pressed to take the manual over this dual clutch. It is just that good. Let's hit a couple more corners here. Let's go into full N mode too. Gosh, the steering just weights up so much. Just so quick. And let's talk about the graphics on the center display here. These are just beautifully designed. On video they seemed a little bit overdone, a little bit gimmicky, but in the real world, looking at this display, the rev counter when it goes from white to orange to red is super helpful. Will it hold gears? Not in auto mode, not in drive. In manual, it will. That's great. It's nice to have that versatility. Some of the noises this thing makes are just super unpredictable, and I love that. Cool, guys. So I'm really impressed with this new Elantra, and I'm liking it a lot more than I thought I would. When I first got into it, you get into this interior and it still feels like an Elantra. You've got a lot of hard plastics, the dash isn't particularly attractive, but your touch points are good. This shifter feels awesome. You've got a really nice leather-wrapped steering wheel. The interaction with all the controls feels pretty good too. The resistance from the turn signal stalk, the feel of the paddles, even though they're plastic, they still have a nice tactility to them. The Alcantara insert on this door panel definitely elevates the feel of this interior with all the hard plastic everywhere else. And I mean, there's no hiding that this is still a mid $20,000, sub $20,000 car at the heart. But everything that Hyundai N Division has done to this has really made this, I think, a class-leading option in the segment. And if you're an enthusiast who does track driving, autocrossing, this is a really compelling option that I would actually consider personally. I think this is a really, really nice package. So Hyundai's done a great job with this. Well done. I'm excited to spend some more time in one of these. Hopefully we can get our hands on a manual. All right, let's shift into full N mode, full stiff on everything. just in auto, the tuning with this DCT is just lovely. We can get a little bit of lift off oversteer too if we want. Brake pedal feel, ABS modulation, it feels great. Whoa. Wow. They're going to be making a lot of these Elantra ends, and I think that's a really big positive to this car, is that it's going to be aggressively priced, and you're going to have good availability. So I think you'll be able to get into these cars with minimal, if very little or no dealer markups, which in today's climate is a really nice positive. Civic SIs, dealers are asking 5-10 over MSRP, and the car is just not worth paying that much money for. Should get pretty good fuel economy too. In 1,600 miles, the owners averaged 26 miles to the gallon. That's pretty good. Probably get a little bit better than that without such a heavy foot. Alright guys, top marks for the Elantra N. Hopefully you've enjoyed this drive. Trying to go as in-depth as I can on this driving experience with just limited time in this car today, but on first impressions, super impressed with what Hyundai N division has done here. Oh, you know what? One thing we haven't tried yet is NGrinShift. How could we not have tried this? This puts you in the most aggressive drive mode for 20 seconds. And that's just a really nice way to quickly access that N mode without having to change drive modes. That's cool. It's the perfect amount of time for a quick pass on the highway, an entrance ramp. I love that. That's a really neat mode. And you get an extra 10 horsepower in that overboost function, bumping it up to 286 from 276. NGrinShift. On the manual car, that is your rev match button. That'll turn rev matching on or off. You gotta wait a few seconds between NGrinShifts. So you can't do overboost right after overboost, which I guess makes sense. Let's do it one more time around this entrance ramp. It gives us more aggressive pops and burbles in NGrinShift too, which is cool. It's literally the perfect time. It literally lasts the perfect time that you need for an entrance ramp. That's cool. And then you're just back into normal drive mode. Suspension is comfortable, engine is quiet, shift programming is oriented towards fuel economy. Oh yeah, definitely some more aggressive pops and burbles in NGrinShift mode. There's even a little shift beep there in manual mode, which I appreciate. There's a rare car in front of us, an Accord Cross Tour. You don't see those every day. Alright guys, well that's going to wrap up our video on the Elantra N DCT. Hopefully this drive has given you guys a pretty good idea of what this is like to live with and experience. I've got to say, Hyundai's done a really good job with this car. I'm excited to get one of these out on track someday too, because I think that's really where this is going to shine. It does awesome as a daily driver. It kind of hits all the marks in terms of comfort, performance, tech features, price point. I mean, this is a really, really well-rounded, compelling package. I think we'll just end things right here. Cool. All right, guys, thanks again for watching. We'll see you in the next video. Appreciate the owner, Adam, for letting me take this out and have a go in his 1,600-mile Elantra N. This has just been a treat. So big shout out to him. Thanks for letting me do this today and film his car. We'll get some more time in one of these in the spring or summer from Hyundai. Spend a few more days in it and give you guys some more thoughts then. But for now, those are my thoughts on the new Elantra N. Great.